Hey guys, so in this video I want to teach you how to create what's called an antibiogram. This is antibiotic disk susceptibility testing. Some of the textbooks like to call this the Kirby-Bauer Disk Diffusion method in honor of the two scientists that developed this method. So what I have is an agar petri dish, right? A nutrient agar petri dish, solid surface that I can spread bacteria onto. But then I also have cartridges with paper discs. And these paper discs are impregnated with antibiotics. Each one is impregnated with a different antibiotic, and I'm going to put those discs directly on top of the lawn of bacteria that I create. The idea being that the bacteria will grow as close to the disc as they can tolerate the antibiotic, because the antibiotic will begin diffusing in the agar around the disc in a circular pattern. What I'll end up with then is growth across the whole surface here, lawn growth, confluent lawn growth. But as I get closer to the discs, there will be a clearing zone, a halo we call it, around the disc. The bigger the halo, the more susceptible the bacteria are to that antibiotic, right? Because they can't grow very close to it. The smaller the halo, the more resistant to that antibiotic they are. And in another video, or maybe later in this same video, depending on how we edit it, we're going to show you then how to measure those clearing zones and how to interpret the result as either susceptible, intermediate, or resistant for that strain of bacteria and that particular antibiotic. So what antibiotics do I have? Well, in this first one I have ampicillin, and you can see it labeled directly across the surface of the label on the top here. So I have ampicillin we're going to challenge our E. coli with. I have gentamicin, and I did grab these randomly, to be perfectly honest with you. I have ampicillin with a beta-lactamase inhibitor called sulbactam that tries to knock out bacterial resistance. We'll see if it works. And then I have one called piperacillin with another beta-lactamase inhibitor called tazobactam. And in class you're going to learn a whole lot about all four of these antibiotics along with a much longer list. So how exactly do I get the lawn on the petri dish, and then how do I get the discs on top of the lawn? That's what I'm going to show you right now. So let's start with creating a lawn. There are lots of different ways to make a lawn, but the standard method for antibiotic disk susceptibility testing is to use a sterile cotton swab. And I took this out of a package. This is sterile. And then a broth of your bacteria that's been properly diluted out. And I haven't gone to the trouble of diluting this one out because it's a demonstration, but it needs to be diluted to a very specific turbidity or cell density. What I'm going to do is work within the safety zone of my flame. I'm going to flame the lip of my tube. I'm going to submerge my, if it'll let me get in there, submerge my cotton swab, and then I like to wring it out so it's not real drippy. I'll flame it again, cap it, set it aside. And now what I'm going to do is apply it all across the entire surface in overlapping strokes. It's important that you use overlapping strokes because we don't want any gaps. Gaps will mess up our ability to interpret the halos around the discs. So you just keep working your way all the way up in one direction. Now, standard method here that I'm teaching you, we're actually going to dip our cotton swab in a second time. Same cotton swab. We're going to add more E. coli to it, and now I'm going to turn this petri dish. I can actually see the lines on here in the reflection of where I just was. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees to how it was before, and I'm going to redo it at a 90-degree angle. So these lines, these swab marks, are 90 degrees to the original ones that I put on there. And again, imagine it's like red paint. You want overlapping strokes that leave no gaps at all. Don't be in a hurry. Overlapping strokes, no gaps at all. You will regret gaps. And then we're going to do it a third time, and we're going to go 45 degrees. So these lines will be 45 degrees to both of the other two sets of lines. Doing all this work in the safety zone of the flame. I'm going to look at this, get it lined up. I can see in the reflection the two perpendicular sets of lines that I just did. And now I'm going to do a third set. Overlapping very carefully. Like I said, imagine it's red paint and you don't want to see anything underneath. You're trying to really thoroughly cover it. Work your way up, up, up. all the way to the top, and then you want to run your swab around the edges to fill in any gaps that were created on the edges. You're going to throw your cotton swab away, make sure it gets autoclaved properly. We're going to put our lid on it, and now we're going to let it sit for a couple of minutes. And while that absorbs, so there's no extra drippy liquid, I'm going to add my antibiotic discs to my disc dispenser. And there's a variety of disc dispensers out there. You have to match the type of disc cartridge that you use to the type of dispenser. This is an 8-chamber dispenser, but I'm only going to put 4 antibiotics in here, and they go in a certain way. They only fit one way. There we go. This first one didn't go in properly. I'll pull that one out if I can and get it to go in straight. There we go, and it has a nice clear click when it goes in properly. Click. And then our last one right here. This one doesn't want to go in. Hopefully that went in all the way. We'll find out. I like to do a test run with this to make sure everything's fitting. So I hit it once and I check. Oops, see, only 3 antibiotics came out. And there's still just 3. I bet it's this last one that wasn't going in quite straight. I'm going to pull this one out. I can feel it. It should just pop right out, and so it didn't go in straight this time. You guys get to do some editing on this. Come on. There we go. I'm going to put it in a different chamber and see if it fits a little better. There we go. Okay. Still only 3. Still only 3. It doesn't like one of these. Which one doesn't it like? All 4. There we go. Okay, so they're all coming out. So now that I've tested it and I can see that they're all coming out properly, what I'm going to do is remove the lid. I'm going to set the dispenser right on top and give it a good firm press. If you take a look, you can see all 4 of my antibiotics on there. I'm going to take a sterile loop and make sure these are all nice and flat on the surface. And what will happen is the bacteria that I swabbed on there will try to grow when I incubate this overnight. But at the same time, the antibiotic is now diffusing outward, creating a kind of an invisible halo, and will only get bacteria growing as close to the disc as they can tolerate. And I will show you those results later in this video or in the next video. Thanks, guys.